Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Coach, thank you very much for joining us here today. And first of all, congratulations on that Big 12 championship over the weekend. Very exciting. Um, we'll kind of just start with that. I know you've talked to some people that night, but as if you had a few more days to think about it, and we're here on Thursday, a week removed, and after selections, just what's it like thinking back on what that weekend was for your program to get back and get a Big 10 or Big 12 championship after such a long drought for the Sooners?
Well, I think obviously, the day-to-day life is very consistent. Things stay the same with that, but it's always great to have a team that contended for the championship, and we tied with Oklahoma State. But I think it's what the school wants. They want us to win Big 12 championships. They want us to contend for titles. So it's a start for I don't think it's where we need to be just yet, but I think that as we continue to keep making progress and keep getting the right people in our program, the standard of excellence continues to rise. And, hopefully eventually it's just an expectation that you contend for a Big 12 championship every year, and you're fighting for a national title every year.
Coach, thank you. Kind of open it up. Feel free to raise your hand if anybody in the call has a question. And I guess whose way is that? Just we can actually, we'll let Mike Willis from USA Wrestling, and Mike, kind of just stick with it as you have questions here, and I'll jump in if I need to.
Hey, Coach. I'm just wondering, how are you guys going to kind of, relay the momentum that you built from the past weekend into the NCAA tournament, and how do you kind of keep that energy and positivity, high and where you want it to be going into the championships?
Well, at this stage of the game, a lot of the physical stuff is done, so it really is about being positive and being focused and having your mind right to compete, and so as we keep moving forward into the end of this week and the beginning of next week, it's really just, shortening the workouts, getting people's minds right, making sure that people believe in what they're doing, making sure that they're ready for the event, making sure they have all the details handled. And there's a lot of details, when it comes to wrestling, meaning, from making weight to nutrition to taking enough water intake in to, to get enough sleep. So there's a lot of little things that go into being successful. It's not just the performance on the mat. It's obviously all these little things outside of wrestling that have to be handled. And then obviously your mind. The mind is the engine. And when your mind's good, everything else will follow. So got to keep building that day to day.
Coach, what's it been like to kind of build the program from when you took over a couple of years ago to where you're at now, and kind of heading into the NCAAs, and kind of, how this program has grown since you were hired and where you're at now?
Well, it was a challenge. I think that, when I got here, I just think that, there's a lot of things that have to be done right, and there's a lot of buckets to fill. And I think what happens is, you start with your recruiting and your culture, and then building an academic standard, and then building your Olympic program, so I think there's a lot of things that go into that. And I think each day you're just trying to continually stay focused on the things that matter for us. And from where we started to where we are now, obviously, when I got it, my first year here, we did take second in the Big 12s, but the conference wasn't nearly as strong as it is today. There's new coaches in the Big 12, at Iowa State and West Virginia and South Dakota State. And so guess what? I think it's a little bigger accomplishment now to get a win and to win the conference than it was 5 years ago. Now we have a bunch of guys ranked and guys competing for All-American and national championships. So I just think that, different recruiting pool, building a culture of excellence, having a consistent standard of the way we do things and how hard you work on a day-to-day basis. All these things matter. And then obviously there's always building that Olympic program. So it's changed immensely, and that we're just going to continually keep building. That's all we can do is keep building brick by brick.
Mike, go ahead.
So, Coach, during a normal year, winning a conference title is a big deal. But what does it add to it, maybe, that it was during the COVID-19 year, a year where, everybody faced an amount of adversity that potentially, they hadn't seen before?
Well, I think first thing, like you said, winning a conference championship it's an incredible feat, and I think especially with the teams that we have in the Big 12, being able to win a championship is in year 5 is huge. But I think the challenges the kids had, when I think about them, I think it's some of them been contact traced, and some of them the inconsistency in their training because of contact tracing, because of COVID, because of things that happen, the new protocols and procedures that are in place for them. Everything's new to them. I just think that they've gone through a lot of things, and we're excited that, that we got the Big 12s, we got through those. And now we're talking about, the NCAA championships and getting through that, so I just think that's been a challenge for them because the consistency in training has been tough on everybody, and so you see some people that a year ago were stars and they don't look the same right now. They're not as ready as they should be. And some of it's just not their fault. They're just not as ready as they were because, these kids need mentored, they need tutored, and they need all the things that the coach does for them. The providing of the structure, the coach is an integral part of what, happens at an institution, and I think the kids, when they don't have that, especially now with virtual classes and everything, they need that. So I think they've been challenged, incredibly. And I think a lot of them have handled it well. It's people that want to compete and do, and obviously they want to fight for a national title, will have done the work, but I'd say for them, the kids, it's been interesting, and I think most of them have done a really good job managing it.
Coach, looking ahead here to St. Louis and kind of your final preparations, just what are your thoughts on your team and the guys in the room that you'll be bringing to St. Louis, and what you're telling them and what you're looking forward to getting back and having an NCAA championship to compete in this year in 2021?
Well, it's really exciting, just to get the event off. I'm excited about the guys that we're taking. Obviously I wish I would have had, a couple more in there, but I feel like each guy it's within their grasp. If they want a place or be in the thick of it, it's in their grasp. And I think if you believe in something enough, then you'll be able to, perform the way you'd like to. Once you get to a certain level, it's about your belief systems and what are you willing to settle for? And I think that we got some guys that, will go out there and fight for what they want. And I'm excited to see how competitive they really are, because I know you have the ability. I know they're trained right. I know they feel great. And we're doing all the little things that we can do to make sure that they have every chance possible to be successful. So I'm really excited to see who's going to show up and how bad you want it. How bad somebody really wants to be successful at the national tournament. And, and we realize it's going to be really competitive and every match is going to be a war. But I think that's the fun part of the tournament is you see people's competitiveness come out and you see how bad the passion that they have, each kid's passion, you go, I could see it in his eyes, so I'm excited to see where some of them, how they compete under the pressure and all the protocol that's going to be a little bit different this time, and who comes ready to fight. So it should be fun.
Yeah, no question. Mike, go ahead.
Coach, so when you take over the program, obviously there's guys from the last coach, there's guys that have been with the program for a little while that aren't necessarily your guys, but you coach them. Now that you've got it up and running, the recruits coming in are your guys. The guys that are going to the NCAA tournament are the guys you recruited. What's that like as a coach to kind of see that cycle sort of take place?
Well, like you said, when you get here and you take over, they're always all your guys. Just some of them you recruited and some of them you didn't, and I think, the thing is this, everything's built around relationships. So having a good relationship and understanding who's who and what they're all about and influencing them to the level that you're supposed to, is really important, but the guys that I recruited, obviously, you have them here for a reason. They come to your program because that they have talent, and then I usually say you stay in the program because you're tough and you can do the work, so the talent gets you there, so I just think that, whether I came and took over somebody else's recruits or the guys I have, my job is to manage them and try to build relationships and try to get the most out of them, and get them an education, get these kids, obviously you want to win in wrestling. That goes without saying. We should never have to talk about that, but there's other parts to what we do, and education is one of them, mentoring them, making sure they do things right. And so I just think that it's a lot of things, and I know people want to say he's his guys, but at the end of the day, they're all your guys. You got to help them. And our job is to impact people. And that's just what you do.
All right. If there's anything else from anybody, or if Mike has anything else. All right. If not, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. And we look forward to seeing the Sooners in St. Louis next week.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time. We'll see you next week. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Josh.